involved in, and Mark McGuire got involved with us in working on. The bill was put in that would change a lot of the caps or the thresholds which you could, a locality could, and others, but this is really a focus on a lot of local government changes in legislation this year on procurement. And there was a bill that Senator Colgan put in from Manassas, Prince William County, and it really was put in at the request of the airport in Manassas. And keep in mind, Senator Colgan is a former owner of Colgan Air that's based at that airport. Sold the business a couple of years ago, but he's very involved with the aviation community, and a wonderful gentleman. And he put in a bill that would allow at the time the bill was put in, it would allow localities on term contracts to go from the present cap of $500,000 for a term contract for professional services to go to $1.5 million. Now, the legislative committee felt, you know, term contracts work. If you go out there and everybody gets free, knows what the term is, and write the bid on it, and make your respond to it as an offeror, then you ought to be able, you know, what's wrong with $1.5 million? And it'd be something that was probably beneficial. But the one thing we didn't like about it was they were saying that any one project under the term contract could go to as much as $1.5 million. And thought that the idea of a term contract was to have a period of time in which you have a firm or firms, it can be more than one, selected to perform services, and these are for several projects over the term of the contract, not for one contract. Why not just put it up for one contract if it's and not a term contract if you can use it all up in one case? Well, this amendment that was offered by this bill that was introduced was really for the airport. And so after we got into it and worked with Senator Colgan, and he was very willing to work with us to try to resolve the problem that we had with it being one-term contract of up to $1.5 million, we, working with Mark McGuire, and we ended up narrowing this down so it didn't apply to all localities in Virginia, but it just applied to cases in which for architectural and engineering services for airports, as defined in a section of the code, and aviation transportation projects, the project fee of any single project shall not exceed $500,000. So we narrowed it down to $500,000 for any single project under $1.5 million term project, and it is only for airport projects. And basically, as defined in 5.1-1 means that it's funded by state or federal aviation funds are going into the particular project. So that's an example of a way that you work with legislators and the people who introduce legislation to keep it from having the overall broad effect that we didn't want to have, but reach agreement on how it could deal with a specific problem that they felt they were having for that airport, in which they said, when they do a term contract, before they were limited to $100,000, they needed some relief on that because a lot of the projects under the term contract were more than $100,000 for the engineering services. Apparently, Mark McGuire charges more than that when he does. I didn't know he was doing so. But anyway, another couple bills that were introduced would prohibit the use of state funds in construction projects unless all iron, steel, and manufactured goods used in the project were produced in the United States.
Reggie, real quick, did the Manassas bill, it failed in the House though, didn't it? It didn't make it out of the House, is that right? Or did it pass?
No, the Manassas bill died.
It died,
yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, what they did, it went through the Senate, got the amendment, got to the House, and the whole bill died. And we did not work to try to defeat the bill at that point. Senator Colgan was very upset that the bill died in the House, but once we reached agreement with it, we did not do anything else on that bill, and he knows we did, because it would be a real problem if we reach agreement and then he felt that we had done something still to try to kill the bill. So no, we did not touch it at that point, and I was surprised, but the House on its own stopped that bill. And thank you for bringing that out, because I didn't say that. This is a bill that will require use of U.S. steel, basically. Now, there were two exceptions put in the bill. One, that it was not reasonably available, and second, if it would increase the cost of the project by more than 25%, the cost of the overall project by more than 25%. Again, that bill did not pass. It was carried over in Senate Finance Committee. Another bill on preference was that would allow localities to give up to 10% preference. This is a Senate bill, same as a House bill we've already talked about. There are several more Senate bills here I won't go over that we've already talked about where there were House bills. Now, a bill that would require energy analysis of state-owned buildings with more than 50,000 square feet and to identify opportunities for reduced energy. This would have to be done by the end of December of this year. It was put in by Chap Peterson, a senator from Northern Virginia. Republicans in the Senate decided Chap Peterson, who was anxious to run for the Democratic nomination for governor, would not get this bill, and it died in the carried over in the Finance Committee, which is a kind way to say it's dead. Another bill that Senator McEachin put in would say that the governor shall require state agencies to implement a remedial measure to improve the disparity in use of women-owned and minority-owned businesses. And this comes out of a Croson case, which City of Richmond case from probably about 20 years ago, which one of my law partners, who's now retired, actually handled and took up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And the Croson case basically says that if you have statistical information that shows that there is a great disparity between the number of businesses that are, say, minority or women-owned and the procurement opportunities in the area, then you could do something once you have that statistical basis to show that there is great disparity in that. And Senator McEachin put in the bill on that, Senate Bill 651, but it got a lot of sympathy on both sides of the aisle on that, because when you look at the statistics, it's really astonishing. As I recall, women-owned businesses got like 1.2% of the contracts, and the evidence showed there were much more, greater percentage of women-owned businesses and all. But anyway, it did not succeed.